Great. All right. We're now streaming. Let me do this description. All right. All right, so we got some time to do some writing, and that's what we're gonna do here. Thank you guys for joining me for this NaNoWriMo stream. Let it happen. Put a little bit of writing here. No, I do not yet have the PDF of the script. I do want to get it to you guys. I don't have it right now. I don't know how much writing I should do. All right, so let's see. All right. In fact, everyone did it. So when we last left off, we met Jessica Beck. We began the rise. Brown-skinned intellectual paces back and forth amongst stacks of books, papers, and electronic tablets. A couple of three-dimensional holographic displays hang in the air. They are littered with notes, diagrams, equations, and more. All right, so the one thing I do want to do, let's see if I can, what I have to do to get a little bit more detail in here. How do I tag this? Oh, I forgot. I gotta make sure I share the screen to my Facebook page so that people, just in case they were waiting to see if I was streaming, all of my adoring fans. Reload. Fetch and preview. Stream is live. Yes. Come in. Come in.
I'm done.
Okay. You can go outside for half an hour. 5:30.
Is it check in at 5:30 or come in at
5:30. Raising kids while being a writer is fun. All right. Now, where were we? Okay. Platinum City University. So this is a small change from, well, not a small change, but it's a change from the little bit from the continuity that you'll find on Project 265 if you check that out. But we'll come back to why I'm changing that a little bit. So Jessica Beck, brown-skinned intellectual, paces back and forth among stacks of books, papers, and electronic tablets. A couple of three-dimensional holographic displays hang in the air. They're littered with notes, diagrams, equations, and more. Her shelves are filled with thick volumes. She looks like she hasn't slept in several days. The dozens of Keurig packets in and around the trash can make that more evident. Dr. Beck has a large book. Is sprawled out on the desk in front of her. And she is taking vigorous notes, both handwritten on a nearby notepad and typed on her laptop. Somewhere on her desk, there's a nameplate that says Jessica Beck, Professor of Hyperanthropology. The chime goes off, indicating an incoming call. I don't know if this should go here or somewhere else. Maybe I'll just move it up here for now. It's kind of ID department head, Vivette Pennington. Crap. Now she luckily accepts the call. Vivette shows up on one of the paragraph from Vivette. We'll leave the descriptions out for now. Jessica puts on a pleasant face. Hi, Dr. Pennington. Hello. I think you gotta spell out Dr. Hello, Dr. Beck. No. To what do I owe this pleasure? A regulator's editorial. Jessica goes over to the shelves and pretends to be looking for something. In fact, everyone did. And everyone's calling for your head. Are you surprised? This is academia. If someone isn't calling for your head, are you really doing your job? Your job is to research, to lecture, and to present fact-based arguments and hypotheses, not to opine that hyper beings will lead to the demise of the planet. I didn't say that, Vivette, but you know it. All right, so that's where we were. And we'll just combine this and say, besides, what I'm saying is not an opinion. It's not an opinion. It's backed up by future historical data. If that's the case, then why do none of your peers agree with you. Because they're scared of hyperbeings. Because they're scared. If that's the case, then why do none of your peers agree with you? None of your peers or colleagues agree with you. Your peers. I refuse to base my findings on fear because they're scared of hyperbeings. I refuse to base. Now I'm starting to feel like this scene would have more impact if Vivette actually visited her office. I think I'm going to change it up. I think we're going to have Vivette come to her office. Like they're having this discussion through screens, and it feels like it could just be more impactful if they're talking to each other. I'm scared of hyperbeings. I refuse to base my findings on fear. So that's a decision that I have to make as a writer and figure out how it changes the scene and how the significance of it changes if I bring Vivette into the office rather than have her being spoken to through the video. Because now I'm just thinking about how you can have that interaction. Let's say one day this becomes a movie and you have these two people having this interaction and they're both passionate, they're both have intelligent arguments. And not only this, but we're going to kind of have this idea that Vivette, well, like I said, Vivette, but in the previous episode of Straight Streaming with Steph, that's 3 S's. Straight Streaming with Steph, SSWS. Maybe we'll go with it. I didn't say that, Vivette, and you know it. Besides what I'm saying, I didn't say that. What I'm saying, so I would want to change that just for the flow. I didn't say that, Vivette. You know it. Besides, I can just say it's not an opinion. Besides, it's not an opinion. It's backed up by future historical data. These are facts. If that's the case, then why do none of your peers or colleagues agree with you? Because they're scared of hyperbeings or refuse to base my findings on fear. Why would they be? would they be afraid of hyper beings? Why would we be afraid? Why would we be afraid? Hyper beings have done nothing but change the world for the good. Nothing. So we're gonna forget about all those supervillains out there. No, somebody in my family's printing something. Okay, so this is not exactly what I want to say here. Why would we be afraid? Hyper beings have done nothing but change the world for the good. Who was printing stuff out? Oh man. Why would we be afraid? Things have done nothing but change the world for the good. So we're gonna forget about all those supervillains out there. Oh. Let me think. Yeah, so one, I'm gonna probably get her in a room, but I want to kind of finish the conversation, I guess, before I totally change that. I have to go up here and say she enters. We'll have to do some. Yeah. I'll Dr. Beck, to do it with pleasure. I read your latest editorial. In fact, everyone did. And everyone is calling for your head. Be surprised? This is academia. If someone isn't calling for your head, are you really doing your job? Your job is to research, to lecture, and to present fact-based arguments and hypotheses, not to opine that hyperbeings will lead to the demise of the planet. I didn't say that, Vivek. You know it. Besides, it's not an opinion. It's backed up by future historical data. These are facts. If that's the case, then why do none of your peers or colleagues agree with you? Because you're scared of hyper beings. Why would we be afraid? Hyper beings have done nothing but change the world for the good. Nothing. So we're gonna forget about all those supervillains out there. That's not my point. And it's not yours either. The villains. And it's not yours either. So at this point, I will have the vet. And she'll be walking around now. So, let's see. It's not yours either. It's not my point. It's not yours either. The heroes The heroes keep the villains in check. The heroes keep the villains in check. There's no. But who keeps? But who keeps? Who keeps unemployment in check? Who keeps unemployment in check? I mean, look at these numbers. Look at these numbers. Who keeps unemployment in check? All right, so I want to say this, but I want to say it in a different way, with the idea being that I gotta turn on the lights for a second, because if I don't, having all these bright screens just shine in the darkness start to hurt my eyes. All right. That's not my point. It's not yours either. The heroes keep the villains in check. But who keeps unemployment? But who keeps, well, what about everything else? Let's say, but what about everything? But what about everything else? So say, change, human beings have done nothing. Heroes keep the villains in check. Heroes keep the villains in check. That's not my point. It's not yours either. It's not yours either. Full hyperbeam integration has done nothing but change the world for the good. Nothing? So we're gonna, how would we be afraid? We'll do this. The heroes keep the villains in check. No. Full hyperbeam integration has done nothing but change the world for the good. World for the good. We are society. Advances in the physical sciences. Advances in the physical sciences. Advances in the physical sciences. Hypertechnology. Advances in the physical sciences. Hypertechnology. Hypertechnology. Almost every field of study, almost every field from sanitation to entertainment, to entertainment in the physical sciences, hyper technology beyond our wildest dreams. Full hyperbeing integration has done nothing but change the world for the good. Advances in the physical sciences, hyper technology beyond our wildest dreams. Almost every field, from sanitation to entertainment, is better and more efficient than ever. Never. How can that be a bad thing? So we're just gonna forget about all. So what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to get the dialogue down on paper. It's not exactly formulated the way I want it or the order I want it, but I'm trying to get down everything I would like to say in this scene, or like the different things I would like to say in the scene. And then I can go back and rearrange it, take things out, stuff like that. Even in this part of the first draft of this, I still do a little bit of that. I wouldn't call this like self-editing, because I know I've been telling you guys, don't edit, just write. So I'm kind of walking a fine line here. This is more so of me thinking through the formulation of the story, because I know what I want to say. Thinking through the formulation or the composition of the scene as I'm writing it. There's a lot of non-editing there's a lot of editing that I'm not doing. I am trying to kind of like get my words down and then kind of move things around just so that it flows for now. But yeah, a lot of this, if not most of it, kind of like the wording of it will change a little bit. Something that I am thinking about right now, so I'll say it here, is I am kind of thinking about about my audience. This is going to be a graphic novel. My target audience for this is like YA. I want to make this I want to make this a YA story. It's a young adult, right? So my daughters are teenagers and they love YA stuff. So I would like to make this something that they'd be interested in, that they would want to read. So one of the things that I'm not gonna do is use too many. I don't want the ideas to be, or the wording to be too esoteric or too, when what we're gonna start talking about here is like unemployment, because hyper beings are taking all the jobs. They took our jobs. Well, you South Park fans out there. Then so the hyper beings are taking all this, so those to kind of make a commentary on automation, outsourcing, technology, and everything, things that we see today, where different, and then certain industries, going cold or being certain industries being left behind, kind of like how, if we move to clean energy, coal energy is not as needed anymore. So all these people who made their living as coal miners, for the last however many years are now being put out of work. So So I'm kind of playing with that idea of how different advances in society and technology, and when we move away from certain things, like the way we've now moved to digital streaming, and we're no longer on VHS tapes, right? So all of those VHS stores went out of business, and people who had to who worked in that business, they had to switch up. They had to switch up to DVDs and into digital and into streaming and everything like that. So in this world, it's the hyper beings who are causing that distress, but it's not pronounced yet. So the idea is that there are a lot of people who are beginning to feel the crunch of this, but they haven't yet. So what Dr. Jessica Beck is saying, that if we keep going with all of this amazing integration, all this amazing hyper being integration, there's like the numbers are bearing out that this is just gonna go until, you know, until virtually we have a war on our hands between people with jobs and people who can't get jobs because they don't have the requisite skills, and in this case, hyper skills, superpowered people are desirable. So I'm kind of, talking about that, playing on the on the integration, like on those integration, how hyper being integration has begun to knock on the door of those topics. But as I think about my audience, I don't want this to get too heady or too hyper. I don't want the politics of it to be too complicated. I don't want it to be something where if a young person is reading it, they'll be like, they'll be not in tune. They won't be able to grasp it if I make it a little bit too, I don't know, for lack of a better expression, heady, I guess. So when I go back to rewrite it, I will make sure that it's clear what the conflicts are gonna be. Like, I haven't totally bared that out yet. And as someone's reading it at this point, they're kind of like, okay, where's this going? But that's where I'm going, and that's what I'm thinking about. It's like, okay, kids in YA, when you're looking at a lot of these YA novels, they have very similar themes. A lot of them are very dystopian futures. A lot of them have young people fighting against older people who are probably responsible for whatever apocalypse happened that made the world into a dystopia. So that theme is something that I want to play with, which is why I did begin the story. If you've been following along for the last 7 days, I did begin the story with Cynthia. And so she's a young person. Now, also, if you've been following along, you know that this is supposed to have taken place 10 years after the scene with Cynthia at the beginning, when she was 15 years old. So because of that, and what I did put relatively speaking, but I do want to make Cynthia kind of like the first, she's gonna be one of the protagonists, and she'll she'll eventually connect with Dr. Jessica, and we'll see, even though it's 10 years later, seeing as Cynthia is a time traveler, has the ability to travel in time, she may not show as a 25-year-old. So we're going to play with some things as I'm thinking about the idea of it being a YA kind of story, like to start as a YA story. Because remember, Hunger Games started as a YA, Twilight started as a YA, Harry Potter started as a YA, all those things started as YA stuff, but they have wide appeal. So if you're writing something and you say, and someone asks you, well, who's your audience? And you say everyone, you need to refine your idea. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that just a little bit. You need to refine your idea. Things don't become widespread successes because they are created with widespread appeal. They're created for very specific audiences, But if they tell good stories and these stories do a good job and the characters are fun and colorful and the adventures are, you know, are relatable and different things like that, that you know, all good stories have, then that's where the widespread, you know, explodes beyond that. You know, Hunger Games wasn't written for me and you know, an adult male. It was written for a YA audience, but I enjoyed it the same way a ton of other adults enjoyed it. That's why it became such a big thing. Comic books were created for kids. Sorry, guys, they were created for kids. They're kids stories. They were created for kids. And as we, you know, as we grew up with these stories, and as they were created for kids, but they told, you know, very poignant and deliberate stories and made commentaries about society, whatever. But you know, they were dressed up. They were dressed up, and they were kids stories. You know, but because the stories did resonate, the ideas in the stories did resonate, someone could read a Superman story as an adult and enjoy it on the surface level of like, look at this guy flying around beating up bad guys, and at the same time say like, oh man, like there's like, you know, there's this immigrant story with him being from another planet and having to acclimate. You know, there's this love story with him and Lois Lane. You know, there is a, you know, there's a story about responsibility, power, and responsibility. A lot of superhero stories about what do you do with the power that you're given, with Spider-Man being the most obvious one because that is his whole rallying cry. But even Batman, as gritty and dark as we all think of Batman now, Batman. It was, you know, when it was first created, it was for, you know, it had themes in it, definitely, but it had the focus of how do we get kids to read this, because that's the audience. So if you're creating something, you got to do it with a specific audience in mind, and that's what will help you get more wide appeal. You know, so that's what I'm thinking of. I'm not thinking of this story as, oh man, I'm writing this so that everybody will love it. Of course, I want everyone to love it. I'd love, you know, to be, you know, a huge thing. But as I'm writing it, I have to keep in mind what a specific audience is and kind of stay within that so that the story is consistent. Like I can't say for one scene, I want this one scene to appeal to young people, so I write it in that way. And then because the subject matter might call for something a little bit more complicated in another scene, I write that one so that it's more appealing to adults. Now I've just messed my whole story up, and people detect that as they're reading it. They'll be like, oh man, I kind of get the flow that he's going with. And then you get this scene that's like, well, this doesn't fit into this, the flow of the story or the feel of the story. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure, you know, if you want to write something that is like, this is for adults, absolutely. You know, you wouldn't set out to write a rated R movie and then all of a sudden drop in a scene as being like, oh, you know, the kids will like this part of it. No, the whole movie stays R, right? It stays hard R, right? It's the same thing, you know, but you have to make that decision. You can't say some of the story is going to be for adults and some of the story is going to be for kids, you know? If you're writing an R-rated story, man, make it a hard R. Of course, some kids will find it, you know, and some parents will let their kids watch rated R movies. My parents let me watch rated R movies when I was a kid. But, and I liked those movies because I fell into them, and you know, and I fell into the story with them and the themes that they were going with. Maybe I didn't understand all the themes, but I liked the feel of the movie. When I was older, I understood some of the themes and everything like that. But I didn't go into watching, you know, Terminator 1 when I was a kid, and it wasn't like, oh my goodness, this is good because they have one scene that appeals to kids or that's cool for kids, you know, or even how so many adults love Disney movies, you know, the princess movies and you know, and all of their animated movies and things like that. Yes, we always have that thing where, oh, they drop in these little jokes that adults would like and da. Okay, that's cool and all, but they do not compromise the audience for those jokes. If a joke is too much that an audience member that in the audience that they're going for doesn't isn't going to get, they're not going to keep that joke in there. The jokes still have to be able to relate to the audience, the narrow audience, or what's going on has to create to the narrow audience. The rest of us, like Frozen wasn't Frozen 2, it wasn't written for me. You know, it was written and created for a very specific audience, but I can enjoy it. So that's what I'm thinking of. Captain Infinity, this particular version of the Captain Infinity story that I'm writing for this, I'm writing it for a young adult audience. So no, there's not going to be a lot of rated R language. There will be fantastical violence, but that's in, you know, there's fantastical violence in a lot of stories that are written for kids. You know, and of course, all these YA stories, they usually take place in war-torn, dystopian areas. So violence isn't an issue as long as it's not, of course, graphic or anything like that. But there won't be any coarse language. There won't be any anything that is too complicated or you know, the complicated ideas that I wanna include in this will be done, hopefully, I don't want to say simple terms because that makes it seem like, oh, I'm dumbing something down, but it will be done in a way that the people reading it will be able to grasp it and understand it, and then maybe, yeah, related to their own lives, their own experience, or something that they've seen out in the world. So when you talk about, you know, like right now, this scene is about, yeah, doing research and having, you know, fact based, and then it's also talking about how things have gotten better. That's because of hyper beings. You know, a lot of these YA things, a lot of YA stories will talk about that. It's like, oh man, this was such an advancement, and they all thought it was going to be good. They all thought it was going to be good, and then it like wrecked the world because someone got too greedy or someone got whatever. So that's a common theme that you see in YA. Don't be afraid to use common themes, you know, to tell your story. You know, I always say this, and I will continue to say this. Sometimes originality is the greatest enemy of creativity. If you're going to sit there and you're going to try and come up with something that no one has ever seen before, you're going to be stuck looking at a blank page. I'm not saying to go copy what other people have, but what I am saying is that there are only so many common themes, and it's how you tell your story that differentiates you. You know, every superhero story is almost the same. You know, what makes it different is not, you know, the iron suit or the bat suit or the spider suit. Yes, that makes it aesthetically different, and there may be some symbolism in what they're wearing, but what makes it different is Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark and you know, and Peter Parker and Diana Prince, and you know, these different characters, their stories underneath that. You know, the idea that Peter Parker is a student and Tony Stark is Peter Parker is a student and Tony Stark is an industrial millionaire. You know, that's what differentiates them, and that's what makes those two stories, allows you to tell some different themes in those stories. But the context, you know, or the overarching themes are still relatively the same. So, you know, what you do with the power that you're given. You know, Spider-Man has to make that choice, slash Peter Parker. Tony Stark has to make that choice. Diana Prince has to make that choice. Thanos had to make that choice. What do you do with the power that you're given? That's a very common theme, and it's a theme throughout almost every superhero movie, but they keep making them. No one is sitting back and saying like, well, I've seen that theme 25 times, so I can't make another superhero movie. We won't make it. You know, Disney is not like, well, I guess we've told the same theme over and over again. We're going to stop making movies. They keep making movies. And if you think that people are tired of seeing those same themes over and over again, just look at the box office. They are not tired of it, you know? So yeah, don't be afraid to use familiar themes. It's the details of the story that's going to make it different. That's going to make it original. But don't outthink yourself. the best way for your story to fail is for you to try and do a theme that doesn't resonate with anybody, because it's not really a theme. It's just like, oh, well, I think this will be cool. I think this will be cool. And I've never seen anything like this. And you put it on paper, and now you don't really have a story. You just have a series of things that other people have never really seen. And you can, no matter how original or how eye-popping something is, you know, if the story isn't something that people can relate to, it's not going to resonate, you know? So try to find those things that resonate with people, even if it's something that you've seen before. The reason we want to tell stories as storytellers, as writers, is because something resonated with us. You know, a story that we've seen resonated with us, and now we want to tell a story that resonates with other people. We can say, like, you can go back and see like a movie like The Matrix and say, oh my goodness, that was the most original thing I've ever seen. Was it? Was it really? I mean, I love The Matrix. I'm not saying this to blast The Matrix. I'm saying I love The Matrix, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of the themes in The Matrix, or a lot of the storytelling elements in The Matrix, were things that everyone watching it was very, very familiar with. So they took a familiar theme, they took a familiar idea, a bunch of familiar ideas, a bunch of familiar themes, and used it to tell this overarching story with all these fun, original, or fun, explosive things to it. So you start with a theme that people are familiar with, and that's where you can spread out for. So that's what we're doing here. All right. Well, that was my soapbox, and that's actually my time. This is actually going to be a shorter than usual one. So maybe I might be back later on tonight to do a day 8 part 2. But yes, I have some things going on this evening. And I gotta go do that stuff. So, hey, we got some words down on paper, which that's what the key is, to get some words on paper every single day. If you're, not going to like the 50,000 word thing, like that's cool. It's cool. It's cool to reach for that and everything. But at the end of the day, it is much more important to just get words on paper every single day. Even if you don't hit the 50,000. So get those words on paper, whether you're watching this right now in live time, or which I think, we got 2 people. I think one of them is me. And or you're watching this later on, get words on paper every single day. If you want to be a writer, if you're writing a story, get words on paper. Yes, you do have to take days off from time to time, but get words on paper. So, all right, I got to run. But as always, shout out to Str8 Legendary. Subscribe if you haven't already. Shout out to The Creative Extreme, www.thecreativeextreme.com. Shout out to Teeny Bandwagon. And also check out my website, www.stephonthomas.com. We got stories for days, guys. All right. The legend grows. Catch you in the next one.